So enterprises, obviously, at some point, your boss goes, where is my telemetry? And you go, uh-oh, spaghetti-o, and you build it. Startups, you have to kind of force them to, especially front ends, because front end developers think how could this be slow? This is not my fault. And it's put some tracing in your freaking app. Especially in this AI landscape where you're just getting slop generated all the time, having this telemetry by default, it makes it much more debuggable.
Hello, I'm Martin Thwaites.
I'm Ken Rimple.
And you're listening to Observability Cast, or o11ycast for short, a monthly series where we talk about how we can make production systems more observable, more reliable, and easy to maintain. o11ycast is brought to you by Heavybit, the leading investor in developer-first startups. For more information, visit heavybit.com.
If you're interested in being a guest on this show, or if you have a specific topic you'd like us to dive into, you can reach us on X at o11ycast.
Remember when you could subversion clone a repo before Git, and then you could run it, and then it would all just run, and then the app would show up and everything would work? And there was no scripts and containers and bullshit. And we always have to text someone and be like, oh, what's the key that I need for this? Where do I get that? And they're click through here and blah, 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 blah. Aspire lets you clone and run again. That's the magic of it. If you use Aspire to its fullest potential, all of the other magical features aside, which there are a lot, just the ability to just clone a repo and then run said repo and get a working app without 2 to 4 days of just fucking around trying to get it to work is so magical. And the way we do it is just a bunch of things. There's tooling, we have a CLI now, there's templates and packages, and we give you stuff and we turn stuff on. We'll be talking all about telemetry, I'm sure, but that to me is the magic thing. I don't have to mess around to get someone's sample app working anymore. I can just run it.
And this is different than Docker Compose, Docker up and down, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because you have IntelliSense, bro. YAML sucks. And that's actually not true. I know a lot of people, we started going on this YAML tirade, and people were actually Docker Compose works really well for me, and you guys are just being dramatic. And we were okay, cool. But YAML, it's good. It's not debuggable. You can't stick a breakpoint in it. You can't use types. I don't know. VS Code yells at me when I fuck up my aspirification of the thing. So it's yo, that's not the type. This is supposed to be an endpoint, not just a random thing. And I'm oh, okay.
Yes, YAML is great. We have somebody at Honeycomb called Pierre, and he has a T-shirt that says YAML is a programming language, and YAML is great until it's not.
That's people who say that XML is a good format for a project file.
Bring back Project JSON.
Martin, you say that. This was said to me in a meeting last night. I shit you not, 13 hours ago. Yes.
Anyway, that sounds like an amazing time for you to introduce who you are and what you're all about, Maddy.
Yes, I'm Maddy. I am a PM, program manager, product manager, whatever they call us now at Microsoft. Professional vibe coder, actually, is what my title is now. I am the lead for Aspire on the product side. So I came in a bit over a year ago now, which is crazy, so that Damian Edwards could stop doing the annoying PM stuff and go back to working on important things. And so that Fowler could have a full-time babysitter. And it's been great. I love it. I was on Maui before, so I had a
Blink twice if you're under duress.
No, Fowler and I fighting is my favorite part of the week. And I know he's going to listen to this podcast and be LOL. And then he's going to text me and he's going to give me exactly, he's going to be that was a great podcast, except for that one thing you said, halfway through. And then I'm going to be yeah. So hi guys. It's fun. We have a good time. But yeah, I've been at Microsoft for 7 years as of last month. I just hit 7, which is gross because I feel I just joined last year. So that's me. Hi, everybody.
So, contrary to popular belief, I do actually like Aspire. But the thing I like most about Aspire is how it has popularized telemetry as a first-class citizen to engineers.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could explain to Ken, who knows nothing about Aspire, exactly what the reason and the process that you went through to try and popularize this telemetry. What's the reaction that you've seen from engineers?
Yeah. So when we started the Aspire journey, right, there were a bunch of things we knew that most people should just do with apps. And so telemetry is the obvious one. And we have really good open telemetry built into .NET, but just better logging, resiliency. So there's just like a standard retry policy on your APIs, like just normal things that you run into while you're developing an app. And so we came up with the concept of service defaults, which is just a .NET project that turns all this shit on for you. And the telemetry part of it is we just turn on the OTel stuff that exists in .NET. We pass the correct environment variables between Aspire's app host, which is like the core orchestrator, the Docker Compose on crack, if you will, and then, the actual project. And so when you run the app, you just magically, with a file new project, or if you just shove it into an existing app, you get the full OTel, just like stacks and traces and logging and all of that. And so there's a couple different reactions we've heard. One is, oh my God, I can test my telemetry without having to deploy things, which was, I think the Xbox services team had this issue. They did like a huge framework to core migration, and they were like, hey, so we keep spelling telemetry events wrong, but we can't figure it out because we have to push to prod to get the like egress into whatever, data, whatever we're using. I'm going to use all the wrong words. It's going to make Martin have a freaking aneurysm.
Well, interestingly, I am wearing the t-shirt that says "I testing prod today."
That is so true. So yeah, but Aspire, you can like see it locally. We have an OTel dashboard built in Blazor, BT dubs, very cool, that you can use when you're just developing.
Which version of the 12 versions of Blazor is it written in?
That's a great question. You'll have to ask, not me, that. Because I don't know. But they let me put some icons in it, so I have contributed code. So that's really good.
Okay, so as you're doing development using Aspire, you're literally developing with OTel from first principles, immediately starting it with telemetry as opposed to just debugging in steps.
Yeah. I actually don't have the browser tools open all the time anymore because I can, just look at the OTel traces. And at some point you do go into the browser tools and you want to see the console, and you, especially in this like AI landscape where you're just getting slop generated all the time, having this telemetry by default, it makes it much more debuggable. And you could see what's actually happening. It's very cool. The other thing is now people who wouldn't care about this at all are caring about it. So enterprises, obviously, at some point, your boss goes, where is my telemetry? And you go, uh-oh, spaghetti-o, and you build it. Startups, you have to kind of force them to, especially front ends, because front end developers think that how could this be slow? This is not my fault. And it's put some tracing in your freaking app.
Yep.
It's fast on my machine.
You're working on my machine.
Fast with no network between the 2 points, right?
Yeah. And it's wow, this GET request is taking a really long time. Must be an API issue. And you're like, are you sure? Are you sure you're sure?
Prove it.
Prove it. And so that's where a lot of the Aspire magic is people who just wouldn't worry about telemetry at all now are worried about it. And so we've been doing this whole polyglot kind of Aspire as a Trojan horse for .NET thing where we sneak into other ecosystems. And one of the big driving forces for that were backend teams who really wanted their front end team to use Aspire so that their front ends would have telemetry without them having to bully people. But the JavaScript devs were like, C#, And so we've been trying to make it less of a barrier to entry to Aspire without the full .NET kind of thing.
What you need to do is tell those front end people that TypeScript is actually C#, but written in JavaScript.
We keep talking, should we build a version of Aspire that you can write the app host in TypeScript? And the argument with Fowler and me is, I say, it's the same freaking thing. They look the same. It's just the amount of semicolons and the casing. And his argument is, but people care. And I'm like,
So I'm a big Pulumi fan, and I've written two very, very similar things, one in C# and one in TypeScript. And then I had to write a third thing that was very similar, and I copy and pasted the wrong one. And it took me about 20 minutes to work out why I was getting little squigglies underneath. And it was because I'd pasted the C# one into a TypeScript code base. And the syntax was so close.
It's so close. I love TypeScript. Don't get me wrong. I think TypeScript's a great language. I just come on.
All right.
Come on, people.
So let me pull you back from this a bit, because
Oh, yeah.
the reason I came to Honeycomb was front-end expertise as well as back-end, but mainly front-end single-page apps and things like that. And
Yeah.
we were starting our front-end observability product, and I came in to be the DevRel on that. So I've been spending a lot of time on web and mobile front ends. Talk to me a bit about what it means to build a front-end application with Aspire and telemetry. What does it mean to me as a developer? What do I have to do differently?
If you only use Aspire as a fancy launcher with types, you don't have to change your app code at all, right? You can use whatever ports you have hard coded and you can tell Aspire to do that. You can not turn on any of our service defaults, whatever it is. The only code changes you make if you want to turn on telemetry and our service discovery, and they're all kind of lumped together in the resiliency, right? The service defaults concept is you add builder.add service defaults in the beginning of your builder, of your program CS, and you add app.map default endpoints towards the end before you do app.run. And those two things pull in all of the code from the service defaults, which is a C# project. So it's code. So you can comment anything out or replace whatever you want.
Mhm.
I know Martin and I have talked a lot about like, well, what if people want to stand up like Prometheus locally and egress to that so that they don't have to use your dashboard, and like they want to use what it's going to look like in prod when they get their data? Or like, what if they want to do honeycomb stuff at dev time? You can just do the code, write the code for it, comment out our stuff. I don't care. It's not my fault. I didn't write it. So it's fine.
And on the client side, you just install OpenTelemetry JS for the browser, right? Like we would do in any other case, or does it do that also and add that script?
It does that for Blazor.
Okay.
On the JavaScript side, there's some environment variables you turn on.
Okay.
For Maui, we now have service defaults that will turn it on for you in Maui, which is good. So that's coming in .NET 10 because we had to redo the actual builder pattern for Maui apps because we built our own on the Maui side. And now we're like, yikes, can't do that. Turns out adding :I host application builder to the fundamental builder pattern for your entire stack is not a light change that you can put in the service release. But that's coming in .NET 10.
One thing I want to add there is Blazor is about 17 different things.
Mm.
Blazor WASM does not have a good hotel story yet.
Yet. Correct.
Until we get threads in, I think, .NET 26, I think we're getting those. We won't have them.
Yeah.
So fun sort of little digress there. I did a conference a number of years ago, a front-end conference, and they asked me to do a talk on OTel. So obviously I did how to implement OTel in Blazor. And in a true professional speaker style, I waited until 2 weeks before the conference to build my demos and the rest of the talk.
That's a long time.
I know. I was a professional. And I found out that it actually doesn't work. So I changed my talk from how to implement OTel in Blazor to 7 ways to not implement OpenTelemetry in Blazor, and 1 way that you can, but you absolutely should not.
Nice. Nice.
So there were hacks on top of hacks that implemented some hacks that made it work. So, but yes, there is a story coming for anybody listening that is looking at Blazor. If you're using Blazor Server, that absolutely obviously works and that kind of stuff. But if you're using Blazor WASM, no, unfortunately not. There isn't anything yet.
So I'm going to pull you all back from Blazor. A quick blurb on what Blazor is for the uninitiated. Is it a web framework?
Yeah. It's Frankensample. I'm just kidding. That's not what it is. People do not like when I say that. No, it's basically like C# in front end HTML. Like Razor is the fundamental language or whatever pattern you want to call it, where you can have HTML and then you can inject C# and use dependency injection and the patterns that you're used to using in C#. It's awesome. It's really, really good. The reason Martin and I are both like with Blazor is there's server, which runs on the server. There's client, which runs fully in the browser. There's WASM, which runs as WebAssembly. There's these like mixed rendering modes. And so what's cool about Blazor is it's really, really flexible. Like whatever you need it to do, it can probably do, but it's very easy to not know what you're doing. And so you have to kind of go in with a formed opinion. Like Copilot has a very hard time with Blazor right now because it hasn't quite trained on the latest, like last 2 or 3 years of Blazor stuff. And so it just...
You mean AI gets things wrong?
No, never. AI, I overlord. Thank you so much.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
To close the loop on that, though, also, I have found, to your point of like Aspire being able to enable telemetry right away and using an AI with Aspire with your code. I had the same thing with Honeycomb, is that I was building a mobile application, and the thing that unlocked me getting somewhere with Claude in my mobile application was actually telling it to go use our MCP to go look at the trace.
Yeah.
And say, all right, you say this is working. I call bullshit, because if you take a look at these 4 traces, these all fail in different ways and you have not accounted for these. So you give me a plan on what you're going to do to unfuck this.
Yep.
So is Aspire getting an MCP?
Oh yeah, of course we are. We're good. We're good. I don't actually know that for a date. MCP is like the thing, right? That everyone's shipping right now. We're kind of like, is an MCP the right thing? Probably. But there's like a couple different like artifacts you can do. We have some really cool experiments going on, but right now we're waiting to see what the correct artifact is. We're not waiting too long, because if you wait in AI, then you miss it. But
yeah, that was so last hour.
seriously, I will say, like, all of us now have our own like fake prompt files that we use when we want to Aspirify things, where I'm like, I use the learn or the context 7 docs MCP is really good, and I'll be like, go look at the Aspire documentation before you answer this question. And then it does a much better job.
And I think that one of the really interesting things that we're finding from an observability perspective is, so one of Honeycomb's real values, one of the reasons I went there, is basically the ability to ask any question and get a meaningful answer from your telemetry. That's really the core of what observability is. Observability as a concept is the ability to ask complex questions and get meaningful answers. It's not about the telemetry. And this idea of being able to debug your applications locally without attaching a debugger, because when you're working in a microservices scenario and you've got 50 microservices interacting, I'm sorry, but you can't step through. That just doesn't work.
No.
But also it produces a lot of data, and using something like an MCP that we've been finding using Honeycomb's MCP is being able to say, I've got a bug, go and look at the telemetry and tell me what that bug is. And it goes, oh, well, this other service is sending you this information and you're not being able to take it because it's taken the telemetry information. And then married that up with your local code base and went, well, that's sending you this information and you're not taking it because I've looked at these 2 code bases. And I think that is that next step. Like, Aspire was really great. Aspire brought in this idea of telemetry as a thing. It's like, as I was saying earlier, the amount of people who believe that Microsoft invented tracing because all of a sudden Aspire showed them a trace waterfall and went, this is amazing.
Yes, we are the only ones who have ever traced anything ever. Yes.
Exactly. I loved the transformation of Fowler from logs are everything to, wow, traces allowed us to debug so many things in eShop. And we found so many. I was like, dude, yeah. But this idea of what is that next step? So you've got this data and you're seeing these things. One of the things that amuses me is that when we move to an MCP, we're essentially then going to stop people from looking at that telemetry. Essentially now what's going to happen is people won't even look at the Aspire dashboard because they'll use the MCP as that interaction with it in order to be able to do it. But that is at its core, we need telemetry. We need people to be thinking about telemetry, to be generating that data.
Yeah. Chat is just the new UX. It's the new Pinterest grid or whatever like flashy UX thing you want, right? Like the command line is back, baby. CLI is back in style, except now I use natural language and the thing like glazes me. And it's like, I'm so sorry. You're so right. Instead of the CLI being like, what did you just type? No.
Yeah, I love when the CLI turns around to you and says, yeah, you're absolutely right. I was wrong. It's why I love AI. Yeah. Every time I tell it, can you say this? It's like, oh, you're absolutely right. I'm like, I know I'm right. Thank you very much for accepting that. Humans don't do that.
Or I've solved it. No, you haven't.
No, you haven't.
You haven't solved it. In fact, try it again. And I know you'll break it 3 more times until I ask the right question at the right time when the moon is full and the stars are aligned.
Oh, yeah.
And then it gets it. But then it's worth it when it actually happens.
Oh, it totally is. What I want is it to just update my stuff for me. I don't want to have to ever rev a dependency and then wait for the build to spin again. I don't want that. Stop it. Make AI do it.
What if like the instruction you could give your AI, like, if I told Claude and, make sure that you check our dependencies and notify me at least when the dependencies have revved. What if you could do that kind of thing with it?
It probably would do something. I don't know.
Okay, so let's get the discussion back to Aspire itself a little bit more. So when you're building an Aspire app, let's say you're building a bunch of microservices. So this is something, if I was trying to draw a Java parallel, since that's my old world, like something like what Spring Boot would do.
Yeah.
It just makes things easy to test, easy to run, easy to debug, easy to look at. You've got dependency injection. Like, what would you say are like the killer things for developers? Their eyes pop out when they see them and say, oh, I want to use Aspire.
Yeah. It's the dev loop, right? It's the clone and run. That's the big one first thing. 2 is the dashboard lighting up with all of this data without you doing anything. That's crazy. That's when you say like the 5 minutes to wow or whatever product term you want to use, like the dashboard turning on and you being like, oh my God, requests. Like that's the big thing. 3 is just, we have this concept of like being opinionated, where we have opinions. As Martin knows, I have a lot of opinions. I know Martin has a lot of opinions. Ken, I'm sure you're lovely and you have no opinions at all. And
what's an opinion?
Yeah, exactly.
I got way too many opinions myself. Yeah.
But like we turn things on, and telemetry is the big opinion. That's kind of a less spicy opinion, but
yeah,
the further you go.
It was though. That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Now it is not a spicy opinion that you should be using tracing logs and metrics together, using resource attributes and pulling all this stuff together and using that as your debug experience. That was a spicy thing like 3 years ago when I was like yelling about this on the socials. And it was like people like, no, we don't need that. That's for ops. That was a spicy opinion. Now it's not at all.
Yeah. That is how you know that we are customer driven. Because we told you to shut up for 2 years and then we did the thing you said anyways. So, customer feedback.
Yeah. Shut up, we're building it, but we can't tell you yet.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, but the thing about being opinionated is like you're allowed to disagree with my opinions. You're allowed to BYO opinions. And so that's what makes Aspire really good is we don't vendor lock you into anything. We don't vendor lock you into Azure. We don't vendor lock you into .NET. You can use Aspire with a full JavaScript non.NET stack. I don't care. Like the only .NET in it is the app host. Sweet. Great. C#. You don't have to deploy to Azure. We have the easiest deployment to Azure because I can message the Azure Container Apps people on Teams and say, this is what we're building. Can you build this with us? And they can say, sure, this will be great. But we also have an AWS story where we now have this like Docker Compose generic deployment publishing thing. So, and I'm doing this to rile Martin up intentionally, by the way. I want him to start talking about deployment and how mad he is about it so we can argue about it in public.
You knew this was coming, didn't you?
My tongue hurts. I have bit it so hard.
Good.
We won't look as you use the spittoon to get rid of all the blood. Yeah.
Just use Palumi. It's way better.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just basically like we keep saying the Aspire app host is a Lego base plate. It's that big green Lego base plate. And we give you a bunch of Lego kits and we say, this is how you build a TIE fighter. And this is how you build a Minecraft sheep. And you can put them all in the Lego base plate however you want. But you can also dump whatever Legos you have lying in the closet and stick them on the base plate too. So they all work together. The primitives are basically containers and executables. That's it.
Have you, are you working with your events team on swag? Because it sounds like you've built this as an idea that basically you want your events team to buy you swag that you never give to anybody, that just stays in your own home, and that you build the Lego yourself.
I would love that. However, they keep telling me not to spend money on silly things.
Yeah, my wife keeps telling me that. It doesn't work.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, I mean, the idea that we give people Lego, I mean, I would actually say, I'd probably say that in a very positive way, Aspire is more like Duplo than Lego. The pieces are bigger and easy to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not this big and you don't step on it at night. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's maybe Duplo that you can break apart and make into Lego if you really wanted.
I just need a Sawzall.
Yeah. You know, with a nice knife and, you know, some expertise, you can break apart the Duplo and make it into Lego.
So it seems like you've done a lot of nice things. Like, for example, you've got these Aspire tags in your NuGet libraries. So tell me a little bit about like how you're enabling all these different integrations.
Yeah. It's kind of like curation, like with extra steps, I guess. With the Lego analogy, right? We have these first party ones. We have the kits that you see on the shelves at Target, but then you have the ones that the community makes, and people go onto the websites and they put in the part list and they buy the kit and it comes with the instructions. And then eventually sometimes we adopt those into the core thing. Like Lego just pulled in a new community build into their like key, whatever they call like the core ones. But now you're going to be able to buy that at Target, whatever it is. So we have the in the box ones, And those are pretty small, like not small. We just have few of them because there's only so many of us and we don't want to have to become experts in all of these things because we're not. So why should we be telling you what the opinions are for everything if we're not the expert in them, right? Then we have the community toolkit, which is it's .NET Foundation. So it's fully open source. It's maintained. We have one guy on our team, Aaron, who is the best. And then whoever else in the community is kind of elected to be one of the involved people in it. And so those are like sort of blessed. They have to have a certain level of quality and usefulness and whatever to be in the toolkit. So they get to be owned by Aspire and community toolkit.aspire.hosting instead of aspire.hosting. So there's a differentiation, but it's still like the official others. And then we have this in the middle. We call them like tier 1 partners or ring 1, depending on the week. And those are companies like Elasticsearch just did this. Amazon, I don't know, there's a bunch that they own their own Aspire integration, but they talk to us and we say, cool, we will put this as an Aspire owned package on NuGet and we'll give it the proper tags and everything. So when you right click add, it's curated. And we know that these are all blessed and are going to work and are going to have a baseline of telemetry that turns on and local development and service discovery. Like there's kind of a few things that you have to be a proper Aspire integration. And so then you can put whatever you want up on NuGet. I don't care. Like just go find your regular NuGet package. But when we do a right click add Aspire with the command line, when you do Aspire add, we give you this curated list of community toolkit, non-community toolkit, and then these ring 1 vendor ones, partner integrations, so that those are your nice Duplos.
There's even a package for the OpenTelemetry collector. Apparently the author is an awesome person and an all-round great human. Yeah.
Really? Is it in the toolkit?
There is a PR to get it in the toolkit with a very, very long argument about container versions. But yes.
Opinions from
Yes. There is currently an argument as to whether latest is a valid tag. But yes, it will be there. It will be there.
Yeah.
Me and Aaron have had chats.
Good.
So
don't drive him nuts. I need him desperately for a lot of things. Protect him at all costs.
That's fine. But yeah, I mean, one of the things Aspire is doing really well, and you mentioned it in what you were talking about there, which is baseline telemetry. It's this idea that everything that you do when it's transitions outside of your application needs telemetry. You need to be able to know that that thing is running. It needs to be able to, whether that's metrics, logs, or traces. I can argue about whether traces are more important than all of that kind of stuff. But at least a baseline of telemetry is really important. And making sure that when we say, let's pull in the Elasticsearch library to be able to communicate with the Elasticsearch instance, making sure that it's actually got the right level of telemetry in there. Steve has done a great job with building telemetry into all of those Elasticsearch libraries, and making sure that when we bring it in, we turn all those things on.
Yeah.
And make it optional to turn them off. So basically, I think a term that's been used a lot inside of Microsoft, which is the help people fall into the pit of success.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this idea that, well, if they bring it in and it's just got all of the things there and they go and they're about 5 minutes to wow, it's like, I've just brought in the Aspire Elasticsearch library and look, all of this telemetry. I know what's going on. I'm a wizard. You know, that kind of experience, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
And I am thankful that Microsoft have embraced this idea that telemetry is really, really important and that people should be. And I hope that it's then sort of transitions into things like Azure App Insights, where they treat these things as a first-class citizen, that we start thinking about custom telemetry. We start thinking about how we allow people to do it. .NET is amazing in terms of its open telemetry integration, purely because we have activity. It's built into the runtime.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy to add stuff in there.
Oh, it's so good. As we've looked at like extending service defaults to other platforms or languages, right? Like we got kind of spoiled by how easy because we built it, but like easy it is to turn all these things on in .NET. Because when you go to something like JavaScript or Python, or there's all these different ways to pull in OTel, and we're like,
we don't talk about Python OTel.
Oh, my apologies.
Nobody talks about Python OTel.
But I'm like, you guys don't like have a way to do this. We just like make it up. That's not good. What?
Yeah, there is a lot of trauma from Python OTel.
Sounds like Python in general. There's a lot of.
It's a just slow story. Just so you've configured it properly.
Yeah.
It'll work.
Yeah.
Is your VM properly set up?
Oh, don't you?
Yeah.
VMs give me heartburn. And that's that.
I mean, they're needed, but they're awful.
Yeah, they're almost really, really good. Almost. Except they don't work. But when they do
And that
work,
almost
great.
part wastes you a week, you
Yeah.
know?
So, Maddy, what is your favorite feature about Aspire? And if you say deployment, we're canceling the podcast and it won't go out.
It's the CLI, which kind of is deployment, but not really. It's the CLI. First and foremost, because I really wanted one, and now we have one. And so that is on sheer will. End of story. No. Two, because I can just run it anywhere. And in code spaces or on like a dev container or on my Mac. I switch between Mac and Windows all the time. I mean, I come from the mobile world, so I was always already doing that. But now, like, I'm mostly in VS Code, and VS does a lot of magic stuff. Like, if you're a .NET developer and you're used to VS, I'm not going to tell you to go use VS Code, right? Like, VS does a lot of stuff for you, but .NET hasn't had this like very consistent cross-platform story, especially since VS for Mac went away, which wasn't anything like VS in general. Like, it was a whole different ballgame.
It was mono developed.
But if you're yeah, exactly. It was like not VS, which is part of the reason. It's just people would download it and be like, "This is not Visual Studio."
Yeah, be confused by it. Yeah,
yeah. But you have people coming in and learning or coming from other languages or whatever it is, and they're like, "Okay, if I do this in VS Code, it's completely different than if I do it here." Aspire, like the CLI, completely. I don't know what the word I want is. It just makes it all the same. It brings it all to the same baseline. You can Aspire run, and whatever you have in your Aspire app host just runs. Done. Doesn't run right, you fix it in C#. You just fix the code. Like, there's no magic project system, or like, you don't really have to worry about, you just run npm install or whatever package manager install, and you don't have to worry what web server you have for your JavaScript or what, I don't know, versions of things exist. You just kind of let Aspire handle it. And being able to do that in the CLI is just, it's amazing. Like, I can just go onto any computer and run it, and I know it's going to work.
So normalizing your development across operating systems, so you don't really care. If you feel like working in Windows one day, you work in Windows. If you feel like, oh, I've got my Mac with me,
Yeah.
I'll put the Mac, pull it up and work. Is it pretty much that like that then?
Yeah.
What kind of animals work between a Windows and a Mac machine on a regular basis?
Me, I'm insane.
I used to. When I used to teach people that had Windows and Mac when I was
Yep.
teaching web development. So this is crazy. I got myself a Surface Book, and I loved it and hated it at the same time because it did some things almost well.
Yeah.
It looked great.
They're really pretty.
Yes, see? But some things it doesn't do that well. But that doesn't matter. But the point being, I could open up whatever and do all my builds in either operating system. And I had to because my students would be on
Yeah.
any of three platforms.
So for learning, Aspire is great because instead of having to deal with how to configure a Redis cache, you just add it. And then, you have to teach them how it works. But if you want to just get the sample running, or you want to be able to have people clone the sample project and make changes to the caching operations or whatever, like, that just works now. You don't have to sit there and troubleshoot between 18 different devices and installations. And, oh, well, you have VS 17.13 and you need 17.14 and like, there's none of that.
Yeah,
It's just gone.
that whole thing, like in the Spring world, what you miss in that is exactly like the setup of the services. Like, you can configure connection to the services very easily, but you've got to find some recipe to do the setup of the platform, and you still have to install the platform. It sounds like this is a great way of quickly bootstrapping a lot of common services.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome. Well,
Can we talk about deployment before you wrap this up?
do we have to, though?
Martin, explain to me what Aspire deployment is and why you don't like it.
Aspire deployment is something that should never have existed
Okay.
because Pulumi exists and it's way better.
Okay.
For me, it's mixing concerns. As an engineer building an application, I should be able to describe my dependencies and somebody else should do the deployment, which is why early days, it was really cool that you had the deployment manifest and then you could send the manifest into something else and let the ops team take what you said as the things I need. I need a Redis cache. I need a Postgres database with this version. I need a MySQL with this, or I'm using Dynamo and I need a connection. And it's up to somebody else because in 99% of organizations, nobody's going to let you deploy using Aspire because that is a different team that does the managing the infrastructure. So I love the idea of describing how my application has dependencies and what those dependencies are, and then doing that inside of that. Great. Using an Aspire CLI to deploy, I think, is an abomination. I think it's incredibly cool, and there is so much complexity that has gone into that, but I just don't think that is the tool that most people would use. I think it really is friends don't let friends right-click deploy, and this is right-click deploy for microservices. So
I goaded you into this because I have for a long time been on your side of this argument, because I agree. Anyone with an ops team is not going to let you Aspire deploy and run that in prod. No one's that stupid, except for your shirt that says I test in prod. Maybe that might allow it.
It doesn't say I only test in prod.
That's true. Where I got sold on deployment, where I softened, and this happened like 3 or 4 months ago, was this concept of a dev time deployment. Meaning I'm logged into my Azure sub or whatever, and I'm developing the app locally, and I know it works on my machine now because I'm using Aspire and everything, but I want to see what would happen if I ran this in a simulated cloud environment. And by simulated, I mean deploy it to my Azure sub, let it run, have someone else hit it on a different machine, make sure all my endpoints are talking correctly, and then tear it down. And so it's this concept of dev time deployments, right? Or like iterative deployment or whatever you want to call it. That's what sold me on Aspire Deploy, because we were working with first parties. And because deploying it within Microsoft and within really, really big organizations is such a cluster F, and you have to have an ops team willing to dink around to make sure everything works, it's a disaster. And so we had all these teams that were basically writing manual deployments to deploy to their own personal Azure sub or their team staging sub just to make sure things worked. And then they would tear it down and give it to the ops team for realsies. And so that is where I softened on this concept. I still fundamentally do not believe that if you are running Aspire Deploy and you're going to prod, although my husband is a big startup person, he's always worked at startups. I've seen him do it. It's horrifying. It gives me like actual like nightmares. So it does happen, but we're talking about mature companies.
I mean, I used to edit HTML on the server. So
yeah, well, yeah. But it's this dev time deployment kind of like it's not a staging environment, because staging kind of feels more legit. But this, I can spin up, I can let my system operate autonomously on hardware that I don't control and verify that everything works. I can run tests on it that way. Where Aspire needs a lot of work is like, what happens in CI, right? Because I don't think you're going to have someone on your ops team run Aspire Deploy as a step in their CI pipeline. So how do we bridge that gap where we give them the assets and whatever, and they are able to do exactly what you said, translate them and say, oh yeah, it's a Redis cache and blah, 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 and like make it less of a handoff. But I don't use Aspire Deploy to deploy to prod. Just don't do that. Use it to test that your deployment to prod is going to work without spinning all the meters and then pulling down your system.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
I mean, I can kind of get behind that, but I think there's better ways to do all of those things generally. But that's probably for a different podcast and maybe a beer at the next conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's...
Don't worry, we'll get you on board one day.
I am on board with the Aspire dashboard. The Aspire dashboard is amazing. I love the Aspire dashboard, and I love what Aspire has done for the .NET development community in terms of making them care about well-curated telemetry. Those are the things I love. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about all of this stuff for us. Where can people find you? What are you doing next? Where can people see you?
That's a good question. Blue Sky at MaddyMontaquila.net. You can also donate to me at Maddy, because I want Maddy.net and it's $3,000. So I'm just kidding. You don't have to actually donate to me. Conference-wise, I'm actually kind of like chill right now. I think the next big one will be the Azure Dev Summit in the fall, in October. So I'll be there causing problems in Lisbon. Very excited. But yeah, I'm around. Catch me on the internet. We're trying to do like almost every Friday a live stream now where we take someone's app and we add Aspire to it. We call it Aspire Fridays, because aspirify is the official verb. So you can catch us on there, and it's very low-key. So that's the best thing to do. Otherwise, Maddy at Microsoft.com if you have been, concern, question. If you email me an issue and you don't have a GitHub issue link, I'm going to ignore it. So you have to file the issue first.
So make AI create the issue. So write the email, fire that into AI, make that create the GitHub issue.
Right.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah, but it's going to take me 2 weeks to respond to my email. And if you don't have an issue in the first one, then it's going to be another 2 weeks until I respond. So you need to
get it right first time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. And hopefully everybody in the .NET development community goes and tries Aspire and sees how awesome it can be and how awesome telemetry can be. So amazing.
That's all we have time for today. If you're interested in being a guest on this show, or if you would like to suggest a topic, find us on Twitter at o11ycast. That's o11ycast. o11ycast is brought to you by Heavybit, the leading investor in developer-first startups. To learn more about Heavybit, visit heavybit.com.